Yelan, the Valley Orchid, a mysterious figure who has lurked in the shadows for years, using many aliases to cover up her true occupation as an intelligence agent for the Liu Chiqing. As she stealthily roams the night, stars shining upon her in the skies, her outfit almost has a mysterious temper of its own, like an orchid blooming at midnight. After all, every secret and perilous domain shall become a garden where orchids can bloom. In this video, we're going to discuss Yelan's outfit design, analyse the cultural significance of its elements, and how these relate to her characterization and place within Liu and the broader world of Teyvat. Quick disclaimer before we get started, these are just a collection of observations I found and pieced together. I'm by no means stating anything as fact. Yelan's outfit consists of a blue cheap house style overcoat embellished with silver details. She wears a dark mesh bodysuit underneath this, with thigh-high boots, leaving cutouts at her sides where her hydrovision hangs. She wears many trinkets and accessories, including bracelets on her arms, fingerless gloves, a pair of white and blue earrings resembling teardrops, a choker, and a number of necklaces, one with a tassel attached and another with a charm resembling a die. In addition to this, Yelan has a white fur-lined coat draped over her shoulders. This doesn't actually belong to her though. We'll speak a bit more about that later. First, we're instead going to speak a bit about some real-life examples from media which piqued my interest when analysing Yelan's design. Taking one look at Yelan and knowing what her occupation is, I think it's very easy to say that her overall design takes a lot of inspiration from the femme fatale archetype, which is mostly seen in film noir and originated in the 1890s. Speaking in general terms, this persona typically depicts a conventionally attractive and seductive woman who is self-determined and independent, causing anguish to any man who becomes involved with her. According to feminist theory, traditional ideologies around femininity emphasize caring for others, being agreeable, and maintaining a so-called attractive appearance. The femme fatale, on the other hand, very much disrupts this idealistic patriarchal view and holds a mirror up to it, reflecting a sense of unease about female empowerment. Other terms for a femme fatale include a seductress, a temptress, or a sorceress, and they have been compared to notable figures throughout history such as Eve, Lilith, Jezebel, Medea, Medusa, Circe, and Cleopatra. As the archetype developed and evolved during the 20th century, new types of femme fatale emerged, displaying educated and self-sufficient traits and holding positions of power. This was largely due to the ever-changing socio-political landscape, allowing women to actually be, contributing members of society. A new type of femme fatale emerged during this time also, known as the New Woman, further disrupting patriarchal ideologies in relation to what a woman quote-unquote should be. Some examples of femme fatale characters from well-known films include Rachel from Blade Runner, Lucy Liu as Orenichi from Kill Bill, Michelle Pfeiffer playing the role of Selena Kyle, better known as Catwoman, in Batman Returns, Coffee, played by Pam Grier, Catherine Turmel, played by Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, and Anna May Wong playing the role of the Mongol slave in The Thief of Baghdad. At this stage, you may be asking, how exactly does Yelan fit in with this archetype? From what we know of her true identity, she is fiercely independent, lives life on her own terms, and prioritizes the good things in life. In her work and through her attire, she is empowered, sometimes through seductive methods, to gather the intelligence she needs to feed back to Ningguang in the Liu Chiqing. She wholeheartedly disrupts patriarchal ideals of femininity and laughs in the face of those who imply otherwise. One small design element I'd like to mention before we move on to Yelan's clothing is her hairstyle. During my research of the femme fatale archetype, I noticed a surge of this type of role associated with the 1920s flapper hairstyle. During this time period, women's fashion began to reflect the freedom and rebellion associated with the Prohibition era. A blunt, straight bob, sometimes asymmetric, often represented traits such as strength, independence, bluntness, and a fun-loving nature. Very fitting for Yelan, I think. Next, something that initially caught my attention about Yelan is her moniker, the Valley Orchid. I know, Emerald's talking about flowers again, but immediately this reminded me of the blue orchid, which is revered for its striking colour. In reality, these flowers' vibrant colour is actually fake. Generally, Phalaenopsis orchids have dye injected into the base of the flower during the growth process to give the petals this rich midnight blue colour. I found this to be interesting while considering Yelan's character, because we don't truly know a lot about who she is deep down. She adopts many different identities while carrying out her work, pulling the wool over people's eyes on a regular basis, much like the petals of the blue orchid. Typically, these flowers will instead have more of a purple-hued colour. The Caladinia caerulea, more commonly known as the blue China orchid, is a flower that is deeply loved in Chinese culture. They originate in mountain valleys and are cherished for their beauty and nobility. Scholars particularly favour these flowers as they represent integrity, nobility, humility, and self-restraint, all characteristics which Yelan displays. The petals seen on this particular species of orchid are long, pointed and splayed out, just like the pleats seen on the back of Yelan's overcoat. Now let's talk about Yelan's clothing. Firstly, the blue overcoat, which is a standout piece of hers, actually has some very traditional roots. The cheongsam, meaning long dress in Cantonese, also known as a qipao in Mandarin, is a dress style typically worn by Chinese women. It has a sheath-like style with a high cylindrical collar, side slits and an asymmetrical opening in the front, traditionally secured with knotted buttons and loops. Materials used for making cheongsams include satin, silk, velvet, lace and cotton. Their designs vary depending on whether they're intended for daytime or evening wear. The latter of these are often far more elaborate and adorned with sequins and beading. Prior to this, women typically wore two-piece outfits consisting of a shirt with either a skirt or trousers. Initially, the cheongsam was loosely fitted and had a low hemline that reached the ankles. It was not very popular at first due to its resemblance to traditional men's clothing known as the changsan, meaning long shirt, or a changpao, meaning long robe. A group of female students in Shanghai were actually some of the first women to wear the cheongsam in 1912. Wearing a modification of the men's long robe was a symbol of gender equality for them, and this experimental style of dress piqued the interest of other women. It soon became a trendy outfit as a result. During the 1920s, the style spread from Shanghai to Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore, among other areas. The shape of the cheongsam has of course undergone many changes throughout history, largely due to the changing roles and status of women in Chinese society. Many working women adopted this clothing item and adapted it to project the modern and progressive values that they subscribed to. The hemline became higher, the stiff collar was shortened, zips and studs replaced the traditional knotted buttons, and the waistline became more nipped in to emulate more Western styles of dress. A traditionally masculine piece of clothing that evolved due to women fighting for gender equality, adapting and customizing it for their own personal styles. In Yelan's case, this overcoat style adaptation of a cheongsam has a wide open collar, almost resembling a halter neck top, showing off an adorned mesh bodysuit underneath. The hemline is asymmetrical and completely open at the sides. The back of the coat has these longer pleated pieces running down into a fishtail shape, resembling the petals of a Chinese valley orchid which we spoke about earlier. And of course, it's in her signature midnight blue colour. The mesh bodysuit Yelan wears under her jacket sparked a thought in my brain immediately. It led me to go down a line of research that I'm very familiar with, the 1970s punk movement. The concept of underwear as outerwear was first popularised during this time. I wrote about this time period's fashion years ago for a different piece, and I was more than happy to revisit it for this video. During the early to mid 1970s in London, Vivienne Westwood had already made a huge name for herself as a fashion mogul and designer. Her designs sought to provoke and inspire, specialising in clothing items that normally would have been worn for, things I'm not sure YouTube would be too happy with me talking about, so let's call them spicy pajamas. Yeah, okay, spicy pajamas that were adapted for daytime wear and would appeal to a niche market that wanted to provoke normative ideals associated with mainstream fashion. Westwood's aim was to take so-called taboo garments out of the bedroom and into the streets. Thigh-high boots, like the ones Yelan wears, are often synonymous with imagery such as the dominatrix. These, along with her fingerless gloves, give the overall impression of a tough exterior, a callback to the femme fatale archetype we spoke about earlier. Connotations of anti-conformity and uniqueness are used as recurring tropes up to this day when referring to the typical punk look, and these can also be linked with someone's personal ethos and ideologies. Yelan's character story tells us that she believes blandness is synonymous with blindness, while thrills afford clarity. Her view on life differs from the typical person, taking no pleasure in hobbies or travelling, which she sees more as a means to an end. Instead, she relies on the roll of the dice to determine the outcome of her day. The next element of Yelan's outfit we're going to discuss is the beautiful array of jewellery and accessories she wears. Hanfu is a term that directly translates to Chinese clothing. Today, it is used to identify many forms of traditional miscellaneous accessories, or trinkets if you will, such as jewellery, ornaments, ribbons, scarves, and handheld fans. Silver was a commonly used material in the making of Hanfu accessories, as it was thought to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck to the wearer. Other materials traditionally used were gold, pearls, turquoise, marble, glass, cinnabar, and oxbone. Glass became particularly popular due to its glittering and translucent qualities, allowing bright colours to shine through it. There is one material I haven't mentioned yet because its significance warranted an entirely separate rabbit hole of research. Yelan is seen wearing a particularly important bracelet made of this stone. The material is, of course, jade.
Try your luck betting on jade?
Thought to have intuitive and psychic abilities, jade was historically considered the imperial gem in Chinese culture. It has been adored and revered since ancient times, and jade artistry has also withstood the passage of time. While it is largely used for making various forms of jewellery, jade statues are often carved into various symbols holding unique significance. For example, the monkey symbolises status, bats represent blessing, shrimp represent laughter, sheep symbolize happiness, and jade discs, signifying ancient currency, symbolize good fortune and luck. Yelan's character story tells us a nice tidbit of information about the jade bracelet she wears on her right arm. This is a family heirloom engraved with a spell which transforms it into a communication device. This was passed down from her kin, the ones she speaks about during the Perilous Trail Archon quest, who reside north of Qingce village. As we've already mentioned, jade is a highly regarded gemstone in Chinese culture. Jade bracelets are considered the most important accessory. But there is more to this than its aesthetic and overall beauty. For most, it represents the bond they have with their kin, and it gives them a sense of belonging. This piece of jewellery is often passed down through generations, and symbolises the indestructible family bonds they hold, making it an heirloom that stays in a family for centuries. This unbreakable nature allows it to represent the good things in life: love, peace, eternity, and harmony. It is also believed to have the power to rid the body of past trauma and wounds, and ward off evil spirits. There is a legend from Confucian times that says if the jade bracelet breaks, then it has done its job of protecting the wearer from incoming evil forces. Maybe this was another reason why Yelan was so keen to get it back from the Fatui camp. We've mentioned good luck charms a few times throughout this video, which is more than fitting for Yelan's character, of course. She is someone who frequently calls upon luck to determine the outcome of her day, so she can definitely put some charms to good use. Tassels are another accessory frequently seen in Chinese culture, and they symbolise prosperity, which happen to be the talent books that Yelan uses. Interesting. The good luck knot is a traditional handmade weaving craft, typically sold as souvenirs or given as gifts during Lunar New Year. It is, like the name suggests, a knot that is tied and woven from a single cord or rope into a variety of shapes with varying complexity. These knots are then adorned with a tassel and are primarily used for decorations and adornments on clothing. Yelan wears one of these tassels around her neck, but instead of the good luck knot that would normally be secured at the top of it, she wears her signature die. A very clever rework of this item in my opinion. If we also take a close look at where her hydrovision hangs, a tassel can also be seen there. Now that I mention it, doesn't the shape of the Liwa vision case look very similar to the good luck knot? I see what you did there, Hoyo. The final piece of Yelan's outfit that we've yet to speak about is the white jacket she has draped over her shoulders. I mentioned earlier that this jacket doesn't belong to her, which you can also read about in her character story. During the same operation to retrieve her jade bracelet, Yelan thought it was only fair to take a little souvenir of her own. She infiltrated a secret trade route that was run by the Fatui harbinger known as Regrator, and stole a precious item from him. This harbinger is also known as Pantalone, the Fatui's treasurer and owner of Northland Bank. The item she stole was a white fur jacket known as the White Silk Mantle. It is thought to be made from the skin of a strange mystical creature, whose remains are still intact despite dying centuries ago, and its fur gives off a mysterious fragrance. Wait a second. Can we take a closer look at this thing? Is that a... Okay, yeah, no one tell Clee about this, please. Anyway, a robe of this material would surely be worth a fortune due to its rarity and difficulty to procure. So, Regrator intended to gift it to the Tsaritsa once he returned to Snezhnaya. Once Yelan intercepted it, she didn't think very highly of its style, so she tore off the fur lining, replaced it with some yarn local to Liwa, and fashioned a brand new custom jacket for herself. Remember earlier when we spoke about Yelan's outfit having some punk elements to it? Well, customization was a huge part of that style era. The ethos focused on DIY methods, which were the driving force behind authenticity and individuality. Just another way of showing other people who's boss, which Yelan is no stranger to. As for my personal thoughts on this character, I feel like there's much more to Yelan's design than first meets the eye, much like her personality. Overall, I think her design in its entirety displays a beautiful amalgamation of the contemporary femme fatale archetype. She has taken a collection of traditional items and customized each one to suit her own personal style, conveying her individualistic ideologies and independent nature. Learning that some of these clothing items were originally made for more masculine presenting people, along with her short blunt hairstyle, only further pushes the theory that she's holding a mirror up to patriarchal norms of what the so-called ideal woman is. She reflects a sense of unease right back at it and feels empowered while doing so. She has found a balance between confidence and ego that allows her to leave everything up to chance and laughs in the face of those who dare to underestimate her. I believe this is a contract of sorts that she upholds with herself. March to the beat of your own drum and gather intel through any means necessary. Well, that's gonna be it from me this time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun exploring some Chinese fashion history, along with finding out more about jade artistry and its importance to the culture. Truly fascinating. Getting the chance to revisit some old research topics of mine was also a lovely little treat. Well guys, thanks so much for watching, and be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you want, it's always appreciated. You can keep up with video updates on my Twitter, linked below as well. And with that, I hope you have an amazing day. Goodbye!